How's everybody doing today? My name is Dana L. Balch, and I am a licensed practical nurse working at Northeast Correctional Complex. I am here to talk to you today about Diabenex, a smart insulin system that would benefit patient safety. Today we will discuss problems with the current system. These problems include dosage errors, errors in dosing intervals, and insulin administration documentation. I will also provide the solution of adopting the Diabenex smart insulin system. This is a Bluetooth wireless system which would greatly ease documentation and medication administration. Next, we will go over the budget of the proposed project, follow up with a conclusion, and then have a questions and answer session. Errors in dosing intervals. One study found that a large difference in dosing time worsens diabetes-related factors. This is especially for long-acting insulin, which is supposed to be given at a certain time in the day, and it acts over a full 24-hour period. Short-acting insulin isn't as affected by exactly what time it's given, as long as it's given within a certain time frame after the patient has the meal. But short-acting, if the dosage is missed, can greatly affect a patient by raising their blood sugar. Some of the related factors that are affected by missing doses are changes in blood glucose levels over long periods of time, which, if high enough, can cause the patient to go into hypoglycemia or hyperglycemia. It also, over longer periods of time, say weeks and months, if continued times are missed, the patient, will have other symptoms such as kidney problems or even like circulatory problems. Documentation errors. Our current system in place requires nurses to get a patient's glucose reading and then match that glucose reading to a sliding scale. This causes a problem because it allows for a margin of error on memorizing or either writing down illegible glucose levels and then matching it to a sliding scale, which provides the patient's next dosage. Also, this could cause a medication administration error. One study reported that one of the main causes of medication administration errors were inadequate documentation. Another thing I wanted to discuss is how documentation determines treatment. Diabetic patients, treatments are based off from, especially when they're new patients, their treatment is determined by their glucose levels over longer periods of time. So if a patient continuously has high glucose levels, then their insulin will be increased by a medical provider who prescribes some medication. But if documentation errors continue to occur because of this margin of error in our current system, then the providers will not have accurate documentation in order to determine the patient's treatment. Dosage errors. These are the most common types of medical error, and it's because it's so easy for it to happen, and there are systems in place to prevent that, such as double checking dosages and making sure you have the right patient. But there's always a chance that things can go wrong. And The problem with insulin is it has such a high potential for harm, um, especially with short-acting insulin. If a patient is given far too much insulin based off their sugar level because of a documentation error of that sugar or glucose level, the patient can immediately go into a hypoglycemic state, which then can cause the patient to go unconscious or even cause death. Um, One study found that 20% of insulin users did not self-administer the correct dose. This means that they could be given too high of a dose or too low of a dose. If they are given too low of a dose, it could cause a hyperglycemic state, which isn't as dangerous as hypoglycemia, but it's still dangerous over a long period of time. And a lot of this is just due to the fact that documentation errors occur, and which cause dosage errors. My solution is the Diabenex insulin system. This would include a couple different things. First of all, it would include the Gluconext, which is a glucometer that, well, it's an attachment to a glucometer which records the patient's dosage, or records the patient's glucose levels immediately to a software application, and therefore there is no margin for error from the medical staff side, in which they have to transfer what they read off from the glucometer into the patient's records. The next unit would be the Clipslin, which is a unit that attaches to a glucose pen, and as the dosage is drawn on the glucose pen, the Clipslin records the dosage and then also documents that into the application. If an incorrect dose is given, it will show up on the application. We'll also adopt the Diabenex software application, which works in conjunction with these two units and allows for easy documentation, ease of access. It can be accessed from any tablet, phone, or computer system that it is downloaded on, and this would allow for healthcare providers to access a patient's information even if they're not there with the patient. So especially for medical doctors who may not always be in the facility, but they may be on call, they will be able to access that patient's information and make adjustments accordingly without having to call the nurse and having the nurse enter an order, which leaves another margin for error in communication. This is a photo of the Diabenex software application. It's quite revolutionary in that it automatically updates the patient's glucose levels, it automatically updates the patient's dosages, and can even be used to document the patient's calorie and sugar intakes from food. So it's kind of an all-in-one system that really just tracks everything. This is the Clipslin unit for glucose pens, and it's very small and lightweight, which is good, especially considering the fact that we have such a small area to work in. But it just easily clips onto a number of insulin pens that are easily available for the patients. It works with any type of insulin that is available in pen form, which is just about every type of insulin, including long-acting and short-acting insulins. And it is also Bluetooth, and it uploads the dosages straight to the application. This is a photo of the Diabenex Gluconext unit, which attaches to almost all of the glucose meters, and definitely the ones that we have in our current facility. And what it does is it instantaneously records the patient's glucose levels as they are taken and sends them to the application, in which it makes it much easier to determine a patient's dosage based on a sliding scale. The budget. The budget for this project is actually quite low for adopting what we need. We currently have about 10 units of glucometers at our facility. So adopting this would only need approximately 10. The costs of purchasing and ordering 10 units of the Diabetic system, which includes the Clipslin pen and the GlucoNext units, would cost around $15.99.80. The next thing we have is the Diabetic software application. This application is actually free with the purchase of a Clipslin or a GlucoNext unit, and that is a major savings cost considering the cost of software applications in the medical field. The next will be $900 for an equipment trainer, which will be an employee pre-selected who volunteers to go to the seminar in order to learn about the Diabetic system so that they can return and train the other employees. The next cost is $300 for the nursing staff and medical staff. Training hour wages. Training would probably be done during the monthly meeting, but just in case if there were extra, people couldn't attend the training meeting, which is during the normal workday, after our training could be done, and that would be covered by the budget. The next cost is $60 for a computer technician to upload the application to the computers. This shouldn't take very long. It's downloadable through the internet, and it would just be so that they could use the admin rights to do it and set it up correctly. And also, if we have any specific ways that we would like to access the application, whether it be through passwords or whatever, they would be able to set that up for us. So in total cost, it would be $2,899.80. In conclusion, the Diabetic Smart Insulin System would allow for efficiency and documentation. No longer would a medical staff have to take a patient's glucose reading, go back to the workstation, input the glucose reading, either from memorizing it off from the glucometer or writing it down. It would automatically be updated to the software application. This is also true for dosages, and we could see the patient's prescription and sliding scale right on the application. This would increase patient safety. There would be no margin for error when it comes for documentation errors that could cause medication administration errors. By increasing the patient safety and reducing the chances of a medication administration error, would reduce the cost of what follows a medication error, which, if it results in patient harm, could be very great to the company, such as, in insurance payments or lawsuit payments. But I think most importantly that this is more about patient safety, just because that is the most important thing. And finally, any questions and answers. And I just want to thank you for your time, and I hope this project works out well. Have a good night.